Hello everyone. What we want to do is go back to the fluid grids and use a different type of methodology that we used in part 1. So what I want to do is come back to my fluid layout. We'd set this up by going to the site, new site, and then we set up the fluid layout. What I want to do is go ahead and delete this out and move these items to trash, because over here on my files panel, I don't want to see any files located because I want to redo this. So what we can do is let's go back up like we did last week and go to File, New Fluid Grid Layout, and from there what we would do is we would look at our different mobile or tablet desktop views, and then if we had an attached CSS we would attach it. We're not going to do it in this case because we're going to generate one. So click on Create. Once we do that, things that we want to do here, or a process we'd want to follow, is go ahead and type in a new folder and click on Create. Once we do that, then what I'm going to name this is just Fluid. Click on Save. That's going to save my CSS in here. If I refresh, you can see it's located there. As I did last time, what I want to do is go back to the split mode so I can look at my code and work off of it. First thing you do when you come in here is you click on the div tag that loads up. I usually start to work off of this. You have your different views on here: the mobile, the tablet, and the desktop. I want to start working on the the desktop view. So what I'd want to come over here is this layout, which this is just a default one that Dreamweaver's already set up. Is go ahead and delete that out, that div tag, because what I want to work inside of here is this container that I have, which I can click up here at the top to get inside of there, or just come into the code, which is going to be easier. Make sure you nest it correctly by clicking your tab button. Then what we do is go to click on the Insert Fluid Grid. Once we do that, then we'll start with what we did last week. Go into type in header. We want to start as a new row so that it goes all the way across. And you can see how that's going to appear right there for me. Come down to the next one, insert a new fluid grid. I'll call this my content, and start a new row. Click OK, and do the same thing for my last one, which was going to be my footer. Say, go ahead and click OK. So we did start this and we have it created. And if I go to design view, you see this was our mock version that we had set up. Different from what we did last week is we went in and we created a main HTML page, and then after that created the main template. But what I want to do now is go ahead and create the template so I can work off of this. So I'll go ahead and delete this contents over here. Take off that T there, and then inside this div tag, which was my content, or you can name a container, you can name it differently. You can see that it's an ID, so it's going to only be used once. I'll go ahead and hit right inside of there. I'll just go ahead and go to Insert, Template Objects, Editable Region, and it tells me it's going to convert it. It's okay. I'll type in main here, click OK. And then last thing I need to do here just to finish this off is go to File and click on Save as a Template. Do not click on Save As, click on Save as a Template. When I do that, I'll go ahead and highlight this, call it Main, click on Save. And then this is one thing that I want us to do a little differently, is on the boilerplate and the respond.js. I'm just going to create a new folder, and inside of this folder what I'm going to do is just call it Fluid. So I know that those are where my files are. Traditionally, or what you'd want to do is probably put the boilerplate in the CSS and the respond into a JS file, but we'll work off that as we build this out. So I click OK, click on Copy, and it's going to copy those files into my Fluid folder, and that's what I want it to do. And then now that I have my template set up, you can see here now too it created a template folder with the main DWT as a file extension. So if I come over here and I do the File New, I can go Page from a Template. Right here I'll click on my Fluid Layout, click Create, and then from there now I have my template for my index page, or my master template that I can start working on my index. So I'll do a File, Save As, and inside of here under the Fluid Layout you can just nest this normally. Just call it Index, click on Save. And then now what we can start doing is looking at the power of these fluid grids. So I'm going to come over here in my code on my split view, delete this out, hit enter a couple times, and then inside of here what I want to do is go ahead and click on and insert a fluid grid div tag. What we can do now is I can call this my image slider if you were going to have one in the middle. And I do want to start this as a new row because I want it to expand all the way across. So I'll go ahead and click OK. And then the same kind of idea of what we did before. Next what I would do is I would go in and I would want to make a container so I could put some of my div tags inside there, or my boxes that I want to create. So what I'm going to do here is I'll create a new, and I'll start this a new row, but I'm going to call this my box container. Go ahead and start a new row, click OK, and then inside of this box container now I want to add a few boxes in there. So I can come in and click inside the code, hit enter a couple times, I'll hit my tab, and I want to create a new box. So I'll go ahead and click on my insert fluid grid, and I'll call this box left, but this time I want to click on my uncheck the start a new row. So I'll click OK here, and what happens is you don't see a lot, but you can drag this over now, and this is the beauty of it, and you can get it at say 30% or 35%, whatever you'd like. In this case what I'm going to do is since I have it highlighted, I can click on my CSS, click my edit rule, go to my box, and then what I want to do is just make this an even 30%. Click OK, and then so that's going to be my left box. I'll do the same thing inside of this div box container. Click on my fluid grid, and I'll call this box middle. Uncheck the start new row, click OK. Then inside of here I can either drag with the fill handles, which are very nice to use, you can kind of get an idea, or I can just click on my little pencil here, click on the box, change the width back to 30% like we wanted on the other. And remember, if you go back and you look at the box container, was out to 100%, so that's why I'm doing 30 on each one of these. And then lastly, one more. Insert the fluid grid, box right, uncheck the start new row, and click OK. Now one thing you may run into a problem if it happens, let's go ahead and go to the properties, click on the div tag, click on the pencil under your CSS panel, go to the box, and then if I change this to 30%, then I'll be able to adjust that, and it's going to float left, so everything will go from left to right. If you do, for some reason, don't check that checkbox on that dialog box to start a new row, then you come over here, and it may have both or right on it, so you can click on none, and then that will fix your problem. Click OK, and then now we have each one of those set up. So if I want to adjust these and make them a little bit larger, you can kind of get a visual on how this would look if you click on live view. You start to see how this is going to set up. So what I probably want to do is start working on the width of these. So I was on my desktop view and working off each of these. Actually, that was a tablet view that I worked off. So you'd have to do this for each one of them on how you want this to set up. The key thing to understand and to look at is that every time you go in, let's say that I was on the tablet view and I adjusted this, and if this is the way I want it to look on my tablet, maybe I would scrunch it down to 20% or 15%. But if I go into my Fluid CSS right here, which is attached to it, and you start looking at the code and understanding what's on each one of these pages, if I go into my mobile layout, this was the setup with the 480 pixels, and the tablet, which was the one that we were working off of. And if we look at these, you can kind of see what's been adjusted to each one of them. So if I scroll down, see that's where we had changed it to 30%. Just keep in mind that as I go through each one of these, I have to adjust each one of these accordingly. So if I want to do this on my desktop version too, I'd have to go in, click on my desktop version. This was, if I go back to my source code, this first one that I was on right here, you can see that that's my box left. So I'd have to come in here, do the same kind of idea. A little tedious to start off with, but you can see the benefits of having this set up and in good shape for you. So if I just go ahead and let me do this on each one of these. So at least get this one set up. Then I'd go back to my mobile view and adjust it how I'd want. Now remember, you'll have to test this out and you'll have to look at each one of your views to ensure that it's going to fit the model that you're looking for. You may have to go into, say, your mobile or your tablet and not have 3 panels that post to each side. So if I go over here and I look, now you can kind of see that was the same idea. The text is wrapping a little bit, that's why one's larger than the other, but we can go in there and adjust those off the properties. So if I come in and I look at my mobile view, this is pretty much the way I'd want to see it, where it just falls straight down. You don't have a lot of room to work with. My tablet view, we can make that decision if we're going to include it or not. It just depends on how much information and if you have images in these box containers here. And then my desktop view, which I'd work off too. If you need to go in and adjust, say you want your header to be 100 pixels, then I'd have to go back to my main template, which this is what I'd set up, and I would need to go back over here, click on my header ID, and then click on my pencil, and then under my box I could come in here and let's say if we wanted 100 pixels, I can type that in and then click OK, and then it's going to adjust for me. So I had to do accordingly. It's on that master template, so it's going to filter down for me and make everything work the way I want it. And the same thing as we did before, you'd have to go in there and adjust it to each one of your CSS for either your mobile or for your tablet or your desktop. So they're all 3 different. One thing that I want to do is just clean this up before we go to the next video, which will be posted next week, is let's clear out these layout div tags, which these were the default ones. So if you go to Fluid Grid, go under the mobile, then also go under the tablet and the desktop view and delete each one of those out. So that you just don't have any. That way there's no confusion. Everything that, all the div tags that you create, you know where they're at and why they were created. So this will be part 2. What we're going to do after this, going into part 3, is we'll go in and start adjusting all these out for our mobile view, our tablet view, and then our desktop view, and getting it exactly the way we want, and then we'll start adding content to it.